With the General Data Protection Regulation coming into force on May 25th, your Alto software has made changes to help you, as the data controller, to be compliant with GDPR. Within your customer records, there is a new Preference Center tab. These are all the consent flags where you can indicate what the contact has consented to. When set, each one will have a date, an updated by field, and a space to free type text notes. Home moving emails are Move It emails. Later on, we're going to find out how the setting of these flags affects how Alto processes the contact record. For existing clients, all these icons would usually be grayed out because prior to this upgrade, there was no way to record consent. There are, however, two exceptions. Clients who agreed to register to Move It will have already been asked if they wish to register, and so these will be set as consented. The date they registered will be displayed on the screen with set pre-GDPR as the updated by method. Clients who had a tick in the Exclude Direct Marketing flag will have the General Marketing Consent set as denied, so that you maintain preferences already agreed with your clients. Talking of the Exclude General Marketing flag, which would have been shown here, this has now been removed as it is redundant. So looking at how these unknown settings affect what you can do with this record. Looking at the financial referral fields on the Position sub-tab, we can see that these fields here are unavailable for us to use. But returning to the Preference Center and setting the flag to Consented, we can now see when we save the record who updated this consent and when. We can also see the difference on the Position tab that the fields are now available for us. The same is true for the Conveyancing consent. The solicitor referred internal and external fields aren't available for us to use when they have unknown consent. You can still pick a solicitor from your contacts in Alto and add notes. But let's see what happens when the consent is marked as consented. So back onto the Preference Center and ticking the green tick, and save the record, and back onto Contacts, we can now select those fields. But let's register a new client contact record. When you register new clients, all the consents will be set to denied, apart from home moving emails, which can be set to consented, but we will come back to that shortly. Denied consent will prevent a lot of actions that you used to be able to use, but let's enter some requirements and save this record. When I go up to the top to the Docs menu, the Send Brochure action is missing. When I go to Matches menu, the Output wizard is matching. So although I can see all the properties that match this contact's requirements, without her consent, I can do nothing that involves sending out property marketing. So let's pick one of these properties. The overview here tells us that there are 4 matches on the matching tile. But going into the Matches tab, I will not be presented with all 4. I'm not presented with contacts marked as denied consent. So that applicant does not appear, even though we know she matches to that property. We saw it from her record. In fact, I'm only getting 3 matches, and there is a reason for this. Hovering over the information message at the top is telling us that there is unknown consent is not being included. Now we can follow those instructions to include unknown consent. Clicking on that tick box, and that will bring in unknown consent, which brings us that full number of matches, the 4 that we saw from that overview tab. We've given you, as the data controllers, the tools to make the decision to send out property matches to people who have already registered but not explicitly given their consent. This can be defaulted by your system admin user. So that covers the main actions that you can undertake when property matching using the Contact and Property tabs. But what about other communications? Clicking on the @ symbol on the applicant overview will open up the email. We can see here that consent settings for this applicant with regards to property matching and general marketing. But what are you emailing about? You can see the status here, so you can decide whether to continue. So adding some text and pressing send. The same is true for SMS. You can see the consent settings, and for ad hoc letters under the Docs option. The red thumb on all of these screens means either denied or unknown consent. Now let's talk about general marketing. As mentioned and as shown, you will know if the client has denied or unknown consent to this when you send an email, letter, or SMS. If you are using Brief Your Market, then when you register a client, the details of the client are passed to Brief Your Market and they control what is sent out based on the Alto consent settings. As mentioned already, all new contacts must be set to denied consent when they are created, giving you, the data controller, the opportunity to gain consent from the contact. The only exception to this can be Move It. So let's see the new settings under Tools and Move It. On deployment, all branches will be set to On. But looking at that information message at the top there, please do take the time to read this message as it will explain the results of turning this on or off. So in short, the results of this will be when set to on, all new contacts will be set to consented. When set to off, all new contacts will be set to denied. You can change this before or after you save the record. So how do you find all of your records with unknown consent to try and get and record consent? You can do this by going to Tools and Match Groups. And from the Actions menu, clicking on Add New, for example, Contact Group. When we add a new contact group, there are the options to filter on consent settings. But you can see there that we can't choose those unless we choose the category of client. So scrolling back up to the top and selecting client. The consent settings are now there for us. When creating a match group, you can choose any of these consents to filter specifically on consent given, consent denied, or unknown. As well as adding these filters to groups that you may create in the future, we've added this filter to existing match groups as well to save you having to go back and update them all individually. So on your groups section underneath contacts, for example, clicking into one of these groups, there's a new consent filter there. This will show all of those consent filters. If one of them is missing from here, it is because it has been used specifically to create that match group. The final part of this consent work is how the client can control their own consent settings using a link from your marketing emails. This is the email that I sent the applicant earlier. The applicant can click on the link at the bottom of the email to set her preferences. Clicking into that, they have the option to select their match, property match alerts, or general marketing, changing any one of these that they want to, and then update your preferences. Back into Alto, you can see that you have been alerted that that applicant has updated their consent settings. On the applicant record itself, under the Preference Center, you can see that they've been updated by the preference email. Thank you for watching this video. For more information on the GDPR changes with your Alto software, please see your Knowledge Center.